Sago, it's June 16th, 2017. Welcome to Let's Talk Native on the LTN Radio Network. This program breaks all the rules for Native radio. No buffalo speeches, no mystic healing, no special Indian prayers, and not really a whole lot of cheerleading either, I would say. We tackle the real issues facing Native people with a look back at our glorious and our grave history, a tough look at where we're at now, and look forward to our ongoing battles for sovereignty and autonomy. Let's Talk Native is produced in association with Iroquois Promotions on the LTN Radio Network, streaming live from the Cattaraugus territory of the Seneca Nation, simulcast and or rebroadcast on the Gwe at CKWE in Tandanega. You can find our audio streaming live at www.ltnradionet.com. And, of course, you can catch us on fine stations like the Gwe, like CKWE, on some radio networks like the Real People's Media, Indigenous Resistance Radio, and Netroots Radio as well. And, of course, we stream this live on Facebook. We do Facebook streaming, and we repost that video. Of course, it's streaming live as we speak. We look for your comments on my Facebook page. If you're wondering where to find that, you can find it at the Let's Talk Native group page. So if you're hearing this and you're not familiar with where to find this on Facebook, go to my Let's Talk Native group page. If you're not a member, sign up and become one. It is a place. It's an open page that we essentially encourage anybody to post Native stuff, and especially the kind of stuff that's going to encourage a conversation, issues, news, views, links, and that kind of thing. I'm not so much into the what's the leaning tree kind of pictures and all of the the pastel stuff and and I don't my page isn't about the new age stuff. It's not for animal pictures and that kind of stuff. It's really about dialogue. It's about conversation. Look, all that other stuff is fine, and in fact I like a good animal video and sports videos and stuff like that. But that's not what the page is for. The page is for this. It's for the show. It's for the conversation. It's a platform for us to address real issues, and that's what it's there for. All right. I'm John Kane. I'm the host and producer of the show. I've got Matt Hill on the board, making sure the audio kind of sounds right.
Sometimes.
And I've got my buddy Ed Schindler in studio joining us in the conversation, participating in the dialogue. And you don't see him and you don't hear him, but you see his work when we post it up on our Let's Talk Native YouTube, Let's Talk Native TV YouTube channel. I've got Jake Proud in studio shooting some video and catching some audio so we can repost that. So, again, afterwards, after the show airs and is streamed, we not only put up the Facebook video again, so people can check it out and add all their comments there. I also post the audio on my SoundCloud page, and I put that out there. And all these links are put right there on my Facebook group page, or pages, I should say. But then Jake does a little bit of post-production. He cleans up some of the audio, the video, and he posts it on YouTube on our Let's Talk Native TV YouTube channel. And we post that. That usually comes probably just about a day later. But it's all good audio. The video on the Facebook Live stuff sometimes can suffer a little bit. We're hoping to improve that. We actually, I went out and ordered what is called a Mevo camera, and that is a camera specifically designed for better streaming. I'm hoping it won't be as choppy or out of focus. Some of the stuff that we struggle with. Look, the audio on the Facebook live stream is usually pretty good. The video is a bit of a challenge sometimes. So we're going to try to improve that. Maybe as early as next Monday, we may try to fire up that new device. It's supposed to be in on Monday, so if I can get a chance to play around with it enough to see how it works, we'll definitely experiment. I'm also going to take that with me to New York. So my streaming from New York, which we have a better signal in New York. Yes, we do. In New York City, they have better Wi-Fi, internet, and phone signal than we have here on the Cattaraugus territory of Seneca Nation. But we're going to try to improve all of that. So that's something to look forward to. Look, I want to give some props to our studio engineer, Kelly McMillan, for the fine work that she's done, at least with our audio setup. She can't do a whole lot about her internet, and at least as of yet, we're all looking to try to improve some of that. The opening song was Res Blues by Murray Porter. If you happen to catch us a little bit early on the stream, we were playing the Water song from the Aquasasne Women Singers. That was before the 9 o'clock hour, so I just want to give that a mention. We do play music and some audio clips, including my version of the Hondokari with Aqua or the Ganunyok, starting at 8 o'clock the hour before the show. It's kind of our pre-show. It allows us to get the bugs out if we've got any glitches with our equipment or stream. We have. We've had some. Sometimes we battle things right up to the 9 o'clock hour, but that's what the hour before. It gives us a chance to play some great music, get some audio out there, and like I said, to make sure everything's working right. So if you're wondering what to do with that hour before our show, then definitely tune us in. And when I say tune us in, I mean go to www.ltnradionet.com. That's where you'll find that, and you'll be able to catch what we're doing here. All right, so couple of issues, and I know this is gonna sound like I'm the guy who wants to wants to talk bad about good news, and that's not really what I want to do. But I know everybody is really excited about a judge ruling that the Dakota Access Pipeline, when it was approved by Trump, because he essentially bypassed the environmental review that was called for by Barack Obama's administration, and that it may have violated law. And in fact, that's pretty much what the judge is ruling. Now, I haven't read the whole case, so if I have any of this dead wrong, then sorry. I'm not usually very apologetic, but here's the thing. I want people to understand that when this thing did get held up, you have to keep in mind that this pipeline was built 98, 99, almost all of it was completed. The pipeline was built right to the river, and then on the other side of the river, it was built all the way to Chicago or wherever it was going in Illinois or whatever. So the only section of this pipeline that was not completed was the part going under the Missouri River, which is essentially where most of the line got drawn in the sand by the water protectors, and rightfully so. But again, unfortunately, 99% of this pipeline was already done. $1 billion worth of investment was already done on this pipeline. So when Obama made his decision, or his administration made the decision to say, look, we're not going to let this thing drill underneath the river until there's an environmental review, I think you have to remember what the environmental review was. So I know it sounds like I'm dogging this thing. Look, it's great to have a judge rule in our favor on anything, I guess, to the extent that we will place, our lives in the hands of a white man in a black robe. I guess it's nice when they rule our way. But if what he's ruling for is that the environmental review that Obama called for does need to be done, I think people got to remember what that is, because it wasn't an environmental review of the full length of the pipeline. How long was that pipeline? Was it like a 1,200 miles or something like that? Yeah, 1,000 miles or something. It was the environmental review that he called for was to say, let's do an environmental assessment on relocating where the pipeline crosses the river. Not whether it does, but where it does. And I'm not wrong on this. I mean, I read the details. What he said is we need to look at alternative routes. Now, alternative routes is only the route across the river. So if you've got a pipeline that goes to the edge of the river, starts back up on the other side of the river, the rerouting you're talking about is, okay, well, let's run this pipeline up north along the bank of the river and cross it, 50 miles upstream? I mean, they're going to run it down south because that clearly would have been on Standing Rock. So if the environmental assessment is to say, well, let's consider what the environmental impact would be of running this pipeline up the river, crossing it someplace else, then running it down along the other side of the river to reconnect. For one thing, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, you know what, that probably is going to have more environmental impact than just drilling across where we are. I mean, that's probably what that's all likelihood going to be what the outcome is. So if this judge is only ruling that the environmental assessment that Obama called for needs to be done, I mean to tell you, this is a bump in the road. This is not the victory that people are crying. I mean, didn't they like light off fireworks and do all kinds of other stuff when Obama first put the stop on this thing for that very environmental review? I mean, look, I am as against this pipeline as anybody. But if you're going to ask a white man in a black robe or a black man in a White House or a white man in a White House to stop this thing, it probably isn't going to happen. So look, it is what it is. I mean, I think if you want to stop a pipeline, you've got to tear up a pipe. And I don't think they're going to do that.
It's just under 1,200 miles.
Okay, so that's what I thought. It was just so. I mean, 1,200 miles of this thing. I mean, it's not even a mile across to cross the river. I think, isn't it? So the last mile, or even if you were going to call it 2 miles. I mean, they got the drilling pads and everything already done. They've already dug up graveyards. Traditional lands, the sacred lands as they're being called. I mean, all those, they already did all that stuff. So now you're going to say what? You're going to add several hundred more miles, 100 miles to this pipeline, so you don't cross it where it's been designed to be crossed now. Look, I'm against this thing crossing the river altogether. You want to talk about reroute the whole damn thing, or don't build it at all. But that's not what this environmental review is for. So, and look, if I have this wrong, by all means, then by all means, give me a comment. Let me know. Hey, look, we do have we got the phone lines available through Darren today, right? Don't we? I know we're not simulcast, but I think. Hey, look, if you want to call in and participate in the conversation, you want to tell me how stupid I am for saying what I just said, then and prove me wrong, then by all means, I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping this judge is going to say, look, Energy Transfer Company, we're not letting you do this. Your pipeline's dead in the water, or dead at the water, it's not in the water. And actually, didn't they already drilled it? What am I talking about? This thing is already completed.
Yeah, it's done.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I am stupid here. Look, this thing has already gone under the river. In fact, they had oil flowing through it, and it leaked. So if this environmental review is going to say, all right, we're going to block off that section that we already drilled, and now we're going to run up, 50 miles or 100 miles upstream, and then cross it, and then come back down. I'm sorry. Looking backwards to say what is the environmental impact of an alternative route to a pipeline that is complete, it doesn't make any sense. So again, I don't know.
Just so you know, our stream dropped and it's back up again now, though, but it is working.
Yeah, I heard somebody just posted, said I can't find the stream. So it is. Look, hopefully by next week we have this problem solved with this new Mevo device, and we'll see how that goes. All I can say is bear with us, and you can go to ltnradionet.com, and that's where you can listen to the audio. Otherwise, we'll post it up and it'll be available. And of course, come tomorrow when Jake does his magic, we'll have the better audio and video put up on our YouTube channel. And
you can call then too, but nobody's going to answer.
Yeah, but if you want to call, you got to call now. And here's the number. The number is 855-967-0463. And again, I usually explain this. This is the number to CKWE in Tyndonega. And
for a good time.
Yeah, for a good time call. For a good time call, 855-967-0463. Darren Doreen, our good friend up there, running CKWE, will patch you through, and you can join us in the conversation. Because if I have this wrong, then please somebody tell me that I got this wrong. But again, I did misspeak about the fact that this pipeline is complete, and so any environmental review is not going to undo what they've done. It's going to cut a section out and then run the pipe someplace else. I mean, here's what's going to happen. They're going to pay a fine. But you know what? Oil companies paying fines, this isn't going to change. That pipeline's there. And the only people that would possibly ever remove that pipeline are going to be people who fight the pipeline. The oil companies are not going to pull that pipeline up. They never have. The only time they've ever pulled a pipeline up is when they were replacing it with another pipeline. That's the only time they've ever done that. So I'm not, that isn't nod, wink, wink here, but If you want that pipeline gone, then somebody's got to pull it up. And that's the bottom line. Look, so I wanted to mention that. I know people are excited about it and excited to have a ruling go their way and our way. And but invariably, every time a court ruling goes our way, I warn people. I say, look, you better pay attention. And think about gaming, for instance. When the Cabazons were fighting the state of California over running bingo, it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court rules in favor of the Cabazons. And they say, look, sure they can do gaming. Hey, if the state's doing gaming, they can do gaming. Of course, that already diminished something, because what they said is if the state does gaming, the native people could do gaming. So it already kind of put some parameter, something in place that, frankly, who cares if the state does gaming? If it's our sovereign land, and if we want to do gaming, we should do gaming. So anyways, but that's by and large, everybody cheered. Everybody went on, again, I don't know if there were fireworks back then, like when Obama stopped the pipeline for a little bit.
Were they legal on the territory there too, or
what's that?
The fireworks.
Yeah, it might have been the only place you could buy them, unless California, restricted them somehow. Yeah, California with all their fires and stuff like that. Maybe you couldn't get fireworks in Cabazon. But anyway, so everybody raved. Oh yeah, we won in Supreme Court. We can do gambling, high stakes bingo, and of course, it also opened the door for Class 3 gaming. So what happened? Congress, in their knee-jerk reaction, within a year. I mean, it takes a long time to pass a piece of legislation, but this one didn't take that long. They passed IGRA, the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, as a knee-jerk reaction. So you get a win in court, supposedly, and it's followed up by what I think is a pretty restrictive and, not just restrictive, but here's what IGRA did. IGRA literally placed the states in our commerce where they couldn't be before. So once Cabazon was ruled, that said, hey, if the state does gaming, Native people can do gaming. Congress rushed to say, look, but if Native people are going to do gaming, they have to work. We're going to make it a requirement under this law. Now, and so hear me out when I say this, because under this law, under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, they are requiring by law that the states and the native territories, the native peoples, enter into a compact, an agreement on regulations, which empowered the state, gave the states power they never had before. So now, were we bound by IGRA? I'd argue that we weren't, but everybody lined up. Everybody said, "Oh, we have a way to do gaming that the United States says is legal." Now, there's benefits to that. One of the benefits of that is all of a sudden your vendors, the guys who wheel in the slot machines, all of a sudden they feel, okay, so there's federal law that says we can do this as long as we do it their way. So even if we argued that federal law didn't apply to us, it certainly applied to all the people who are going to finance, all the people who are going to be vendors, all the people who are going to be any kind of consultants, contractors, anybody. So our people lined up to do it. So again, what I think you have to understand is, a ruling appears to go your way, and it opens up the door for what? It opens up the door for the federal government to say, all right, we gave you a ruling, now we're going to restrict you on it. So even when there is a ruling, it goes that way. So, I mean, and I think this ruling associated with the Dakota Access Pipeline is probably not nearly the victory that the Cabazon case was. So, again, I don't want to, be the buzzkill. It might be too late. Sorry. I don't like being the buzzkill. But I think it's important that people realize, because, again, the celebrations that took place after Obama supposedly stopped the pipeline. Oh, Obama stops the pipeline, shuts it down. No, he just kicked the can to the Trump administration. And it was after that all of a sudden eviction notices were coming, and there was as much violence after the Obama ruling as before it. So, and certainly there was as much abuse from the Morton County sheriffs, the North Dakota State Police, all of the police departments, agencies that lent them a hand, and of course don't forget the Bureau of Indian Affairs and their Office of Tribal Justice. I said office. Did I say awful or office? I think I said office, awful, whatever. But I think that we have to understand that these rulings are not the wins that people try to make them out to be. And so I think we have to be cautious. I mean, it's sad, but this is the problem with thinking that those court systems are going to provide equity in resolving conflicts between us and the state and us and the federal government. It isn't. That's just not the way it plays out.
I think the people have to understand that when the United States or the state courts make a decision, they maintain the right to change that decision. So that's one of the things that people have to be aware of.
Well, or not necessarily agreed to be restricted by those decisions.
Right.
I think that's part of the issue. And here's the other thing that I think is important to realize, and I've stated this on several occasions. In fact, I've wrote a piece on taxation. Just because we have paid taxes, or may not have paid taxes, or just because we have conducted ourselves in a way that does not violate state or federal law, does not mean that we have consented to those laws having jurisdiction over us or having power or authority over us. Now, there are things that we do on a daily basis that sometimes gets us to a better place to fight some of these things on a better day. Live to fight another day, as they say. There are plenty of people who have paid taxes, and then there are people who've drawn a line and said, no, I'm not paying these taxes anymore. I paid them. It was a mistake to do it. I did it under duress. I did it under under protest. But I'm not going to do it anymore. So I think because that's the other thing that people say. Well, you've paid taxes, or you have a driver's, or you have this, or there's so many people who are quick to point out that the first time you start talking about sovereignty is, well, you can't really say you're sovereign. Look what you're doing here. No, that you're mixing up the issues here, because if the idea of a government, whether it's the state or the federal government, them claiming to derive their authority from the consent of the governed means that the consent had to come someplace. That doesn't mean that they're not going to force people to do. Or that they are unable to force people to do something. But that doesn't mean that they've consented to it. So forcing people under penalty of prison or taking their stuff, seizing products, seizing assets, seizing bank accounts, that's still not consent. Submission is not consent, and I think that's what people have to realize. And even if you have several generations, and let's face it, the Seneca Nation never paid federal income tax until a white man that was under their employ decided that it was in his best interest that income tax be paid by the Seneca Nation rather than him doing it himself. So that precedent that individual took does not mean that the Seneca Nation or the people of the Seneca Nation or Ongwe in general have somehow all of a sudden on a wholesale from a wholesale standpoint all of a sudden consented to the IRS or to federal authority or state authority. No, there's a difference between submission and consent. So I just want to put that out there. We've got a couple other things I want to talk about. I know we're almost at the bottom of the hour, but I want to leave one comment before we take that break. And the comment is, it's relating to so many people who think that every time they see somebody who is in conflict with the United States or Canada, they look at them as potential allies. Well, first off, let me be clear. Allies are not friends. And that's why they say friends and allies. They don't say friends are allies. So, and to think that somebody has a common goal with you, or maybe there's a few places where your agendas line up, doesn't mean that all your agendas line up. And I think it's important that people realize that. So the expression that we hear oftentimes is, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I will argue that that is not the case. The enemy of my enemy is not necessarily my friend. Maybe, could be. I'm not saying that we don't line up with some people who are our allies or who are our friends. And I say this because I see an awful lot of people trying to defend Russia over this election hacking stuff, or for instance, you go back to the Vietnam War. Look at all the people who were against the war, and in being against the war, the Vietnam War, would go out on a limb and suggest that the Viet Cong, the North Vietnamese, they were freedom fighters. Well, some of them were, but the guys calling the shots weren't. They were ruthless, and they were tyrannical. They were all of that stuff. So I think it's important that people realize that just because you don't agree with somebody, everybody else who doesn't agree with that somebody is not necessarily on the same page with you. I have no love for Russia. Russia is every bit the imperial power that the United States was. They took land by force. They are a militaristic country, and even when they weren't a part of necessarily the global economy and all of that, even when they weren't as committed to that as other countries were, they still did not necessarily. They create the haves and have-nots. They created economic disparity in their territories. I think any country that does that, I have a problem with. So whether it's China. Look, I'm not saying that I hate Chinese people or Russian people, and I never suggested I hate American people. But when you look at these governments and you look at their human rights violations, the fact that they treat people so badly and so poorly, they don't recognize the rights of people. They don't recognize the natural law of creation. And anybody who doesn't do that, I have a problem with. So I'm not prepared to say, I'm not going to sit here and defend Russia. And I'm not going to say, claim that everything that happens to the United States is a false flag, operation. I think there's some of those. I think it's possible some of them are that. But I'm just not. I don't necessarily embrace the grand conspiracy things because I don't think man is capable of them. Frankly, I don't. But we're at the bottom of the hour, so we'll take a break. But I want to talk a little bit more about the enemy of my enemy is not my friend. And we'll do that when we come back. I know what are we going to take a break on here?
John McLeod, Lazy Vampire Song.
All right. Yeah, there's some lazy vampires out there. All right. We'll take a break with that.
I met this vampire one time down around New Orleans. My car broke down one night, and he pulled up in an old rat rod. He said he'd slept in that morning because of a beautiful woman that he'd met the night before. I said, Mr. Vampire, if y'all don't bite me, I write you a song. He looked at me over top of those dark glasses and said, come Tilly-hoo. So I wrote this song for that lazy vampire, and I hope he likes it, 'cause I don't need him coming down here biting on me. It sounds like this right here. Roll over, pretty woman. Yeah, the sun is in my eyes. I should have left you last evening, girl, before sunrise. Put me in your cellar before I die. Cover up my old rat rod and make sure with something black. I'm gonna need it this evening, girl, when I'll be making tracks. Roll over, pretty woman, before I die. Guess you don't know me, girl, I'm from another time. I ain't seen the sunshine, girl, 1935. Roll over pretty warm before I die. Girl, if you help me, I reward you on, and you will live forever, girl. And that's what every girl wants. Roll over pretty warm before I die.
Oh, we got no.
Yeah,
Give me a
you're-
second here.
Okay, hang on. We're not back yet. Hang on.
Oh.
Call my friends from the dark side. Hey, when the sun go down, they get the railroad started when I'll be coming around. Roll over pretty warm before I die.
Okay, now we're back, John.
I was still typing. Hey, there's nothing wrong with listening to the rest of John McLeod. He's one of my favorites. Obviously, you know that there's certain guys that we play a lot, and it's not just because we're ill prepared. Although sometimes it is.
It's a good part of it.
We default to Murray Porter and John McLeod often because they're two guys. We like their music. We feel like a kinship to their music in this program. So that's why we do that. Hey, let me run through my sponsors here. I want to recognize that. Those people who really support the show and make this possible are folks like Ross and Holly John from the RJE family of businesses, Eric White, ERW Enterprises. I've got individuals who contribute on a fairly regular basis, and sometimes it's a little bit here, a little bit there, but it all matters. It all helps us do the things that we need to do. Folks like Ed Schindler, my buddy right here in studio, Tracy Brown, Cynthia Trice, Scott Snyder, Neville Spring, Sugar Rod Tour, and I got to mention somebody else. We've had a few deaths in the community as of late. Some folks that I personally were closer with than others. Kirk Young passed away, and you just said just this morning,
Max Kennedy.
Max Kennedy. But one of the individuals that I knew better was John Williams, and his nieces and nephews, they played sports with my kids. I've known John for a number of years. But the other thing, and the reason I'm mentioning him now is because John also is one of the guys who supported this program, and he did it quietly. He didn't do it with a whole lot of fanfare. He would make a contribution on occasion. Sometimes he'd ask me to maybe read a flyer or something like that for some of the things he did. The Peacekeepers thing, especially in the city. Did some things with a lot of the Senecas who lived there. Not just Senecas. I mean, John did some good things. I mean, he could be a controversial figure, but our relationship was one where I think he very much supported what I did and what we did here, and the fact that we have the conversations that don't exist in other places. The fact that we encourage that conversation. So I want to give my acknowledgement, and of course I want to send out my condolences to all of the folks who've lost not just these three, because we're still reeling from losses of loved ones and friends, and at any given time there are people that are in that, and which is going to bring me to a topic we're going to talk about before the end of the hour here. But I wanted to acknowledge specifically a guy that I considered a friend, and so I want to acknowledge John and of course the others who've passed, and of course I offer my condolences to their families, because that's what condolence is. It is the support and the caring that you offer the loved ones who are grieving from a loss. So I offer that out there. I stopped by calling hours today and saw John's wife Angel and spoke with her a little bit, and some of his kids. Again, my thoughts and my condolences I offer to all. So I want to mention that. I also want to take the time to thank UnityStream, Apache Radio Net for providing us the streaming that allows us to create our Let's Talk Native radio network. I want to thank again CKWE for both the simulcast and the rebroadcast, as well as providing us with a phone service, a greatly underused phone service, I might add. If you don't believe me, just give it a call. It's just waiting there, 855-967-0463, if you want to participate in the conversation. So I want to thank those. And, of course, I want to thank the other networks, Netroots Radio, Real People's Media, Indigenous Resistance Radio, and all of you who share the videos, who share the audio, who with friends, with reposting it on Facebook and all that stuff. So I want to thank all of you for helping us expand the conversation. And more importantly than just expand the audio and the video of what we're producing here, but expand the conversation yourselves. The whole goal is that you will hear something here that maybe reaffirms something you already knew, but either forgot or don't realize the importance of promoting it. And that's why we have the conversations. We want somebody to engage in the conversations, not just with us. I mean, at the breakfast table, at the lunch table, at the dinner table, the diner, among your friends at work. Matt, you've had some terrific conversations with coworkers in some of the places that you've worked, and native and non-native. Some of them have been productive. Some of them may not have been productive. I recall you working with a few of the Lancaster folks who didn't see eye to eye.
Yeah.
But I think that's the value of what we're doing here. Look, I just want to finish up again before I get onto the other topic that I just mentioned. On the enemy of my enemy is not my friends, not necessarily my friends. I know, Ed, you had some thoughts on it when I mentioned we were going to talk about this. I think we have to be careful, because if you look historically, and this is what you mentioned, Ed, you look at all of those other European powers that were fighting against each other. Spain, France, Dutch. I mean, when you think about all of these countries that were fighting each other, none of them had our interest in mind. I mean, we as Haudenosaunee, Mohawk in particular, we aligned ourselves with the British against the French. And then the French would turn around and align themselves with the Americans against the British. So it's they all pick and choose when and where they're going to fight with each other or against each other, but every one of them were really adversaries of ours. So I caution people, and again, any one of these countries that have been a part of the colonial system, the imperial system, the idea of taking lands from others, not just us. I mean, I think about, I ran into a young lady in New York who was from the Ukraine, and I said, "Look, talk to me about Russia coming into the Ukraine," and she was clear about how much she was against it. I mean, some people, I've heard plenty of Native people say, "Well, Russia, they were all Russians anyway. It was okay that Russia went in and did that." Crimea and the Ukraine and all that other stuff. And not if you talk to the people from the Ukraine, they aren't okay with it. So when I think about people being displaced by these colonial powers, these people who lust for power. I mean, Vladimir Putin wants to rebuild the Soviet Union. He wants to build that empire back up. And he's going to run over people to do it. So don't make any mistake about it. This is not a nice guy. He's actually probably, even though he's in a much less powerful country than the United States, he's a much more assertive and dangerous individual than a moron in the White House right now, or Mar-a-Lago, or wherever he is. So, again, I have to caution people against believing that anybody who stands up to the United States is our friend. I mean, look, it's great that this this new guy elected from France kind of snubbed Macron or whatever his name was, or I can't think of his name anyway. But the guy who just became prime minister of France, hey, it's great he snubbed Donald Trump. He deserves it. It's great that Justin Trudeau did it. But you know what? These guys are going to screw people left and right in their own countries. And frankly, Justin Trudeau is no. I mean, he's great for photo ops. He even puts on, those suede jackets with the fringe on it and the beadwork. When he poses for pictures with Native people. Yeah, the Steven Seagal stuff. Yeah. He's great for doing that. And he doesn't let Trump do the squeeze and pull on the handshake. Oh yeah, that's just great. Yeah, good for you.
Give me the old.
Yeah. So I gotta caution people: don't get too excited about this. Now that's two things I just ruined for people, right? I ruined the whole Dakota Access Pipeline ruling, and now I'm ruling this idea that the enemy of your enemy is your friend. Oh well, so be it. All right, here's what I wanted to get to, and it's relevant especially today because we have seen a number of deaths in our community, and the thing is that in our culture, we have obviously we've incorporated English words to describe certain things in our culture. So we use words like sovereignty and and I know people who say Indian and tribe and all these other things that I think are loaded words. But the one word that is interesting because it's come to mean something completely other than what it is intended to mean in the English language is the word condolence. The thing is, the condolence is something when you offer somebody your condolences, what you're doing is you're offering your sympathy and your care and your thought because of death. When you condole somebody, you're offering condolence to somebody who's lost a loved one. Because for the most part, a person who sits in a titled position is there until they die or until they retire from that position. We talk. We use the word condolence as an expression of somehow installing a chief. And again, I just used a whole bunch of real bad English words for to describe that. But in fact, we'll refer to it as a title holder. Oh, well, he's a condoled chief. That's not that. Those words don't even make sense. But again, it's what we say. And see, what it means is that when you go through the condolence, when a chief has passed or when a title holder has passed, and it's not just when a title holder's passed. I mean, it's when anybody passes in the community. You have a funeral, which is essentially a condolence. It is the funeral itself is the condolence. It's just that when it's a title holder, you oftentimes try not to leave that seat vacant. So when it's a title holder, along with condoling the family who lost somebody, you a part of that reassembling the logs. The metaphor is that the woman of death strikes the family fire, and scatters the logs, scatters the embers. And so what you do in the condolence ceremony is you try to regather those logs, and you reconnect those embers and those logs so the fire becomes rekindled, so to speak. Now, this isn't anything new to people. It is new to some people. But what's happened is there's a certain part of our native societies, I guess, or native territories or communities. When you ask about the idea of doing a condolence for a community or for a family who's lost somebody, no, we don't do that. That's just for chiefs. Well, I think we need to take a little bit of a trip back to understanding that when the Guyana de Goa, that great good path that was the reunification of the Haudenosaunee, initiated by the Ganawida and Hiawatha. One of the first parts of that, and what we refer to as the first three strings, has to do with Hiawatha, who had lost his daughters. His daughters had been died, and they didn't just die of natural causes. The story, as it's told, says that Taladaho was responsible for the death of his daughters, and he was grieving, and he was very much grieving the death of his daughters. When the Ganawida comes upon Hiawatha, he sees Hiawatha stringing wampums, shells, And he's stringing him because what he's saying as he's doing it is that if I ever meet anybody who is suffering, who is in pain like me, I want to remember how I got through. I want to know the words to say to relieve that burden. So I'm going to string these strings to remind me. It's like a pneumatic device, a memorization device.
Analog.
Oh, there you go. So what he and so the first three strings describe somewhat literally but metaphorically the things that you do to offer somebody who is grieving. You know, we refer to the dough skin, of the underside of the dough, the softest suede leather from a dough, something gentle and comforting, and you offer that to wipe away the tears. And again, the metaphor is not just to wipe away the tears, but wipe away the ashes that have been kicked up from that woman of death.
The smoke and the ashes.
The smoke and the ashes that get buried and burns in your eyes, and so it brings the tears. Of course, the grief is what really brings the tears. But it's that metaphor. We're going to wipe away those ashes. And we're going to wipe away those tears. And we're going to comfort you. And we're going to... we're also going to provide you with... let me do it in the right order. Right? You take the wing tips of a seagull's wing. It comes to a bit of a point, and you help to clean out those ashes and those embers and all that pain that is now deafened you. So you can no longer hear the joys of life. You can't hear the babies, and you can't hear the birds, and you can't hear, you can't even hear any of the consolation that people are offering you, all the good words, all the love in the room, the love in your community. You can't hear any of it because you're overwhelmed with grief. And the metaphor is that those ashes have blocked your hearing. So we're gonna take that gull wing and we're gonna clean the ears out. And then we're gonna take the purest and the coolest water from an underground spring. The purest water, something that is so refreshing and the best water you can drink, and we're going to offer that to you, and you're going to drink that, and it's going to clear that throat. It's going to clear your throat again from those ashes and that pain. Now you're so overcome with grief you can't even speak, so you can't see, you can't hear, and you can't speak. You're crying. All that's coming out of your mouth is grief. So with this water, it soothes you. So we're soothing you with the dough skin in your eyes. We're soothing you with your with the gull wing with your ears, and we're soothing your throat with. Those are the first three strings. That's describing the comfort that Hayawenta wanted to remember, and it would be what he would offer. And this becomes not just the story of the Gonowida and Hayawenta. It is the first three strings of the Guyana Lagoa. Ganasakawa, right? Mm-hmm. All right, I always got to ask you. So when we suggest to people, especially when a community is grieving, not just because of deaths like this, but even because we've had the drug epidemic, we've had suicides in some communities, so when you say, look, we should do this ceremony because it's symbolic. But it's a teaching thing. It is a life lesson about how to comfort somebody, and it has these specific. It's not magic. We're not saying we wipe your eyes and we clean your ears and you drink the water and poof, it's gone. It's no, it's not that. It's
how you visualize it.
It's a metaphor, but it is comforting. So it is all of those. It's both literal and metaphoric. But it's about how you offer yourself to people in grief.
I want to add something here. I hope I described this right. Is what I believe Lorraine told us. I think what the confusion comes is with the two types of condolences, like you're talking with between a chief and then raising the minds of a person that's passed or whatever. That the small condolence, the process of or the interpretation of condolences is talking about raising things up. Now, when a person
raising their minds off the ground,
their mind is on the ground, and now you're raising that mind up off the ground so that they can experience and talk about creation. That they can return them back to the world. And now the part about condoling a chief is after that. It's about raising that person up for their name.
Well,
Now,
that's another
you're
raising
presenting that.
up.
You say this person here. You're making everybody aware that you're raising this person up to that name, and then all the other titles, the other people that held that title before them, are they're no longer that title holder. Now you're saying that this person here is going to be known as that person. So you're raising them up to that name. So that's maybe where the confusion is.
This is where other confusion comes, because this idea of raising up a chief creates this visualization, this erroneous visualization that they're propped up higher than the rest of us. Mm-hmm. See, and that's the other thing that is mistaken.
Well, that's become that way. That's not the original way.
But I'm saying that the language barriers, I think, because when you understand that what you're acknowledging that with the death, with the scattering of the logs, part of that the language is used is saying that their heads are on the ground, that their heads are hung low because of this grief. So you're raising the families up. You're getting them off the ground, and then of course there is raising those names, putting that the new title holders into place, because you don't take that name to the grave. So. I think the reason that I wanted to talk about this is not only because we have a grieving community here, but there's been confusion, as Loran indicated to you, that somehow the words that Hayawentha spoke are being misinterpreted. That they and it can't be. I mean, because when you hear any other time I've ever heard this story told, it was clear that he is saying, if I ever meet anyone who is suffering from this grief, this is what I will say to them. Mm-hmm. And he records that with the wampum. But somehow, because of being indoctrinated into this hierarchy, this male dominance hierarchy thing, that we have been led to believe by some that these ceremonies, so this condolence, small condolence, or just those first three strings, that they were only for chiefs. But the story could not be more clear. And I've never heard anybody who has ever spoken of the Guyana de Goa say it differently. Maybe a word or two, but I've never heard anybody say that. I've never heard anybody say Hayawentha said, if I ever see a chief or a title holder suffering, this is what I'll say, or the family of a title holder suffering. No, he said, if I ever meet anyone feeling the grief. I mean, because again, this is Hayawentha. He wasn't grieving over the death of a chief. He was grieving over the death of his daughters. So I'm not sure how we get to that place, but and all I'm saying, look, if you don't believe my interpretation of it, this is the way it was explained to me. And I've never heard an explanation different than this, other than a few people who I heard say, no, we don't do that. That's not ours. And I'm saying, find out, learn this for yourself, and understand why there's value in understanding this ancient, and I'll say it, this ancient process of helping somebody grieve and overcome their grief.
Mm-hmm. When we did the Great Law in Six Nations a few years back, I remember they did that for the group that was there. All the people, they did it for the whole gathering that was there. We sat around in a circle, and it was brought up like that. We went through the whole thing, and it was for the people. And the thinking is that because the people were the survivors basically, and we've lived through all of that. All the trauma, I guess.
And we've had grief pile up on year after year.
And it's been all along.
And it's never been addressed.
Yep, it's never been addressed. They said, well, we don't even know if the people ever came to terms in a peaceful way from the War of 1812 or whatever, all those early wars with the French and the English and Americans, everybody all fighting with us on all the different sides. That they said we don't know if we were ever come to peace with that. So that was part of the process to include all of that. It was very good. I learned something that day, and it helped me out as far as you were there too, and That was
Well, and the point is that it does help you. I mean, mentally, psychologically. These are the kinds of things, and they help you. It's a tried and tested process, for centuries, for millennia, that people use to say this is. That's why we call it Guyana Ragoa, a great good path, a path that allows you to do good. And I think this is why I think it's important that people understand and do try to learn this, even if you don't know the language.
I think if anything, it helps you visualize your grieving process yourself, and that's how it helps bring you back from that. I mean, to have you described saying, because everybody has been through grief, they understand that lump in your throat where you can't talk, and people are talking to you. You're in a daze, and you don't really, people saying stuff to you, and it's like,
you can't hear.
Just see them mumbling, you don't really clearly hear what they're thinking because you're so concentrated and fixated on what just happened, and in your eyes, of course you're crying, and you don't always see, you're not seeing things, you're paying attention to what's going on there instead of what's going on in the general world around you. So it's it does help you visualize that.
Because these are very physical things that happen to you. This isn't just, it isn't just metaphor. You literally can't speak. You literally can't hear, and sometimes it's hard to see.
It helps explain that. It helps explain why you feel that way.
Well, and what you can't see is the good, because you're so blinded by the grief. Mm-hmm. All you see, feel, hear is pain. And so the act of trying to wipe away,
or even visualizing that,
sure.
having that, somebody wiping your eyes, and that's comforting in itself, because you feel that, they did it with the skin, that you feel it on your eyes, and the feather on your ear. So you've got a physical sensation of what, it helps you picture it in your mind. So that's part of the ceremony, I believe.
Yeah.
And that helps, bring your mind to that place. And then they talk about, you watch that family, and then once you start seeing they say once you see their fire reassemble and you see the smoke coming from their chimney, that's when you can go back and visit them. Mm-hmm. And I take that as saying if you start seeing them doing, everyday productive things, you see them outside, you see them act, then it's time to go back and visit to them, and help them out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just wanted to touch on this stuff. I mean, and I'm not trying to, promote myself or ourselves as the cultural authorities, but or the culture police. But I think these are the kinds of things that I think people need to have a better.
I don't mind sharing. I mean, that's
exactly.
what it's,
and that's what
it's for.
And by all means, discuss it. And again, when I hear somebody say that's not for us, I go back to the words spoken in the Guyana Ragoa about Hayawentha sitting there, making a commitment to all of creation. That if I ever see anybody grieving, these are the words I'm going to say to them. I mean, it couldn't be any clearer than that. Look, thanks for listening, and please do take some of the stuff we take into consideration, and allow it to be a part of your dialogue and perhaps some of your thought process. That's all we can suggest. Look, we'll be back Monday. Maybe we'll have our new video devices set up. But that's it for tonight. And again, I thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on Monday. Nyawe.
Nyawe.